Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes complex topics and boils them down, giving you that shortcut to really understanding what's going on.
Yep, cutting through the noise.
Exactly. And today we're plunging into, well, a pretty shadowy world. Rootkits. They're some of the sneakiest, most dangerous malware out there. And our mission today, for you listening, isn't just definitions. It's about getting a real feel for the hidden power these things have.
Right. And by the end of this this deep dive, you'll hopefully get not just what they are, but really why they're such a big deal.
Right.
Because the main threat, it isn't just getting access they shouldn't have. It's doing it while being completely invisible.
Cloaked.
Totally cloaked. Which lets attackers keep control for, well, potentially a long time, undetected. Stealing data, messing with your security, even launching massive attacks like DDoS attacks.
So it's about uncovering what's hidden deep down.
That's the core of it.
Okay, let's start right at the beginning then. What is a rootkit? And that name. Where does rootkit even come from? It sounds a bit, I don't know, ominous.
It does, doesn't it? Well, at its core, a rootkit is just a type of malicious software, malware.
Okay.
But it's designed for two very specific things. First, get administrative access, the highest level, often called root access on like Unix systems.
Level control.
Exactly. And second, and this is really the key part, to hide itself completely from any tools you might use to look for it.
Ah, hence the name.
Right. Root for that highest access, and kit, because it's basically a collection of tools the attacker uses to get and keep that access hidden.
Gotcha. And you mentioned that they're often bundled.
Yeah, often they come packaged with other nasty stuff, which just makes finding and removing them even harder.
Okay, so they're malware, but you hear about Trojans, viruses. How are rootkits really fundamentally different? Because it feels like their purpose, that hiding aspect, is kind of unique.
It absolutely is. And that distinction, that's what makes them so uniquely dangerous.
Right.
While other malware might, corrupt data, demand ransom, or just spread like crazy, rootkits are laser-focused. They want unauthorized, persistent, and crucially undetected admin control.
So they're not just breaking in, they're moving in permanently, invisibly.
Perfect analogy. Think of, say, a Trojan. That might be the trick to get you to open the door, right? It pretends to be something legit to get that initial foothold.
Okay.
But the rootkit, that's what the attacker installs after they're inside. It's like they build secret tunnels and hidden rooms that nobody else knows about, giving them free rein indefinitely.
So the Trojan gets them in the door. The rootkit lets them live there unseen. What about things like spyware or viruses, then? How do they compare?
Good question. Spyware, its job is mostly observation, right? Collecting your data, tracking what you do. Yeah, watching. A rootkit is much more about control and hiding. While they can deploy spyware, their main aim is maintaining that deep access and staying hidden. And viruses or worms, they're all about self-replication, spreading far and wide. Rootkits are usually more targeted, focusing on maintaining that deep, undetectable control over a specific system, or maybe a group of systems.
And they operate deeper down.
Much deeper, often. That's a key differentiator. We're talking kernel space, the very core of the operating system, or sometimes even the hardware firmware itself.
Wow.
If a rootkit gets into the kernel, it's not just hiding, it's fundamentally changing the OS's rules from the inside.
So normal antivirus might just miss it entirely.
Often, yes. Traditional AV usually runs at a higher level. It's like trying to spot a parasite deep inside by just looking at the skin.
Yeah.
The rootkit is operating beneath the level where the check is happening.
That's a really helpful way to think about it. So, okay, they're rewriting the rules, operating deep down. How do these digital chameleons actually do that? How do they pull off this disappearing act? Let's get into the anatomy.
Right, the anatomy. It's quite sophisticated, really. It involves several key pieces working together. First, there's establishing backdoor access.
Secret entrance.
Exactly. A way for the attacker to get back in remotely, run commands, maybe install more malware, change settings. They often do this by modifying core system files or kernel modules.
Okay.
Second, they usually need privilege escalation. They might get initial access as a normal user, but they need to bump that up to admin or root level, often by exploiting some, vulnerability in the OS.
Makes sense. And then the hiding part, the stealth mechanisms, that's their signature move, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Stealth is everything for a rootkit. They use some clever techniques. One big one is hooking.
Hooking.
Yeah, it means they intercept legitimate system calls. Like, imagine your OS has an instruction, show me all running programs. Hooking lets the rootkit grab that instruction, secretly remove its own name from the list, and then pass the modified list back to you. So, poof, It's invisible on that list.
Wow, okay.
Then there's something even sneakier called direct kernel object manipulation, or DKO.
DKO.
Yeah. Think of the kernel, the OS core, having like internal lists of everything, processes, drivers, you name it. DKOM is where the rootkit directly manipulates those internal lists. It just unlinks itself, makes itself disappear from the kernel's own bookkeeping.
So it's telling the OS's brain it doesn't exist.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Which makes it incredibly hard for security software to find because the OS itself is saying nothing to see here. They also do more straightforward file and process hiding by messing with file system drivers or process managers, so their stuff just doesn't show up.
Okay, so they hide brilliantly. But how do they make sure they, stick around, survive a reboot?
Persistence. Crucial for them. They have several tricks for that, too.
Yeah.
One really nasty one is using bootkit components.
Bootkit, like starting up?
Exactly. They infect the actual boot process. The master boot record, MBR, on older systems, or the UEFI firmware on newer ones. This means the rootkit loads before your Windows or Mac OS even starts.
Whoa, before the OS itself is running.
Yep. Makes them incredibly hard to detect and remove because they control things from the very beginning. They also use things like registry modifications in Windows to make sure their malicious bits load automatically every time the system starts.
Standard malware trick, but effective.
Very. And then there's the really scary stuff. Firmware infection.
You mean like in the hardware chips?
Precisely. Embedding themselves in the BioUEFI firmware on your motherboard, or maybe the firmware on your network card or hard drive.
And that survives. Wiping the drive, reinstalling Windows?
It absolutely can. If the malware is in the firmware, reinstalling the OS won't cut it. It's still there, ready to reactivate. Extremely hard to deal with.
Okay, that's deeply unsettling. And how do they phone home? Get instructions.
Right. Communication channels. They need to talk to the attacker. They use stealthy methods here, too. Things like reverse shells, where the infected computer connects out to the attacker, which is often less suspicious to firewalls. Or DNS tunneling, hiding commands inside what looks like normal internet address lookups. Very sneaky.
Truly sophisticated stuff. Okay, so we know how they hide and persist. But you mentioned different levels. It sounds like they vary quite a bit in terms of where they hide in the system.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction. They operate at different depths,
Yeah.
and each level brings different challenges.
Okay.
At the sort of shallow end, you have user mode rootkits. These run at the same level as your normal applications. They're still dangerous, but generally easier to detect and remove because they don't have that super deep access.
Right, they're not in the core.
Exactly. But then you go deeper. Kernel-mode rootkits, these are the ones operating right inside the OS kernel.
The heart of the system.
The absolute heart. They can intercept anything, manipulate core functions. These are much, much harder to detect and can compromise everything.
That sounds bad enough.
It gets worse. Bootkits, we touched on these.
Yeah.
They infect the MBR, or UEFI. Loading before the OS. Super persistent, often invisible to security software that only loads later.
Okay, truly nasty.
Then, firmware rootkits. Residing in the hardware firmware, like we discussed. BIOS, network cards, extremely difficult to find, let alone remove, can survive a full OS wipe.
That's the nightmare scenario almost.
It's up there. And then you have things like hypervisor rootkits. These target virtualized environments. A hypervisor is the software that runs virtual machines.
Like VMware or VirtualBox.
Exactly. If a rootkit infects the hypervisor itself, it sits underneath all the virtual operating systems running on top. It can watch and manipulate everything they do, and the VMs themselves have no idea. Utterly stealthy in that context.
Wow.
There are also memory-based rootkits. These live only in the computer's RAM.
So they disappear on reboot.
They do. Which sounds less threatening? Maybe. But they're often used for very specific, quick attacks, grab some data, run some commands, then vanish. Part of what we call fileless malware. Hard to trace afterwards.
Because there's nothing left on the hard drive.
Precisely. And finally, just to be complete, virtualized rootkits, which are sort of a variation specifically designed to exploit vulnerabilities in VM software or the hypervisor itself.
Okay, that's quite a range of hiding places, from applications down to the bare metal firmware. So for you listening, the big practical question is, how do these incredibly sneaky things even get onto your system? What should you be watching out for?
Yeah, how do they actually arrive? Usually it's through familiar channels, unfortunately. Phishing emails are still huge. You get an email with a dodgy attachment or link, you click it, and boom, the rootkit installs silently in the background.
The usual suspects.
Pretty much. Exploit kits are another big one. These are like cool kits hosted on malicious websites if you visit one with an outdated browser or plugin.
Like Flash or Java or something.
Right. The exploit kit automatically finds a vulnerability and uses it to install the rootkit, often without you clicking anything else. Drive-by downloads.
Nasty.
Then there's infected USB drives. The old trick of leaving a lost USB stick somewhere public, someone plugs it in, game over, potentially.
Always resist the urge.
Definitely. And of course, malicious downloads. Getting software from untrusted websites, especially cracked or pirated software, that's a very common way to get more than you bargained for. Even malicious ads on legitimate websites sometimes.
Get so-called malvertising.
Exactly. And sometimes they're just bundled with other malware. You get hit by one thing, and it brings a rootkit along for the ride.
Yeah.
Or simple social engineering, tricking you into running something that installs it.
Okay, lots of ways in. But given how good they are at hiding, rewriting the OS rules, living in firmware, how would you even know if you're infected? It seems like they're built to be invisible.
You're absolutely right. Detection is the major challenge with rootkits. They're designed for stealth. But there could be subtle signs. Sometimes.
Oh, okay. Like what?
Well, you might notice unexplained performance hits. Your computer suddenly gets really sluggish, crashes more often. Maybe the fan is always spinning because the CPU usage is weirdly high, even when you're not doing much.
Could be other things, but a potential sign.
Exactly. Another big red flag is security software disruption. If your antivirus suddenly stops working, or it's disabled and you didn't do it, or it keeps throwing errors, that's suspicious. Rootkits often target security tools first.
To blind the system.
Precisely. And then just generally unusual system behavior. Settings changing on their own. Maybe you see strange processes running in Task Manager, though rootkits often hide from this. Or weird network activity, things that just feel off.
Gut feeling, almost.
Sometimes it comes down to that, yeah. But these signs are often subtle, or they might not appear at all, especially with the really advanced ones.
Okay, so detection is tough. Let's pivot to defense. What can you, the listener, actually do to protect yourself? And if the worst happens, how do you even begin to get rid of these things?
Right, defense needs to be layered, proactive. For detection and removal, you really need specialized tools. Your regular antivirus might miss them.
Okay.
There are tools specifically designed to look for rootkit behaviors. Things like kernel integrity scanners, ArcHunter, Rootkit are known examples, often used on Linux, but the principle applies. They check if core OS files have been messed with.
Right.
Then you have dedicated anti-rootkit scanners from major security vendors. Microsoft has its malicious software removal tool, MSRT. Malwarebytes has an anti-rootkit beta. Avast includes features. These often use more advanced techniques, including offline scanning.
Offline scanning, what's that?
That means scanning your system from outside the running operating system, like booting from a special USB drive, or using a tool like Windows Defender offline.
Ah, so the rootkit, if it's running, can't interfere with the scan itself.
Exactly. It's crucial for detecting things like boot pits that load before Windows even starts. You're examining the patient while they're asleep, basically.
Good analogy. What else on the defense side?
Well, prevention is key. Enabling secure boot in your computer's BIOS or UEFI settings. This helps block unauthorized bootloaders, making bootkits harder to install.
Something most modern PCs have.
Yes. Usually needs to be turned on, though. And boring but vital. Regular updates. Keep your OS, your applications, and your firmware updated. Patches fix the vulnerabilities rootkits exploit.
Basic cyber hygiene.
Absolutely fundamental. Then there's user behavior. Being cautious about downloads and emails is huge. Don't click strange links, don't open unexpected attachments, avoid sketchy download sites, especially for cracked software.
Common sense, but easy to forget.
It is. Also, consider running your day-to-day computer tasks using a standard user account, not an administrator account.
Why does that help?
If malware gets in while you're a standard user, it has fewer permissions. It might not be able to install a deep kernel-mode rootkit or modify critical system files. It limits the potential damage significantly.
Yeah.
And if you do suspect an infection, especially a persistent one, that offline scanning is often your best bet. Sometimes even booting into safe mode can help, as it loads fewer drivers and services, potentially disabling parts of the rootkit.
Okay. And the nuclear option.
Yeah, sometimes, especially with deep kernel mode or, God forbid, firmware rootkits, the only 100% reliable way to be sure it's gone is to wipe the hard drive and reinstall the operating system from scratch.
Ouch.
And for firmware rootkits, it might even mean needing to reflash the firmware itself, which is often not a user-friendly process. Or restoring from a clean system backup made before the infection happened is also a critical recovery step.
So prevention is definitely better than cure here.
Massively better.
Okay, we've talked theory, anatomy, defense, but these aren't just theoretical constructs. Rootkits have caused some major real-world problems, haven't they? Impacting millions, critical systems. Let's look at some infamous
Oh,
examples.
absolutely. They've made headlines big time. One of the earliest, and maybe most shocking for its source, was the Sony BMG copy protection rootkit back in 2005.
Sony, the music company.
Yep. They put rootkit software on something like 22 million music CDs. It was supposed to be for copy protection, digital rights management,
Okay.
but it installed itself silently when you play the CD on a PC, deeply hid itself using rootkit techniques, and crucially, it opened up huge security holes that other malware could then exploit.
So Sony accidentally made people more vulnerable?
Massively. It was a PR nightmare. Government investigations, lawsuits, CD recalls. It really showed how even legitimate efforts could go wrong and highlighted the dangers of hidden software.
Wow. What else stands out?
Well, you can't talk about impactful rootkits without mentioning Stuxnet around 2010.
Ah, yes, the Iran nuclear program one.
Exactly. Stuxnet was incredibly sophisticated. It used multiple rootkit techniques to hide, but its goal was unprecedented: physical destruction. It targeted specific industrial control systems, PLCs, used in Iran's uranium enrichment facilities.
And it actually caused damage.
Reportedly, yes. It subtly manipulated centrifuge speeds, causing physical damage, destroying maybe 1,000 centrifuges. It infected hundreds of thousands of computers globally, but was laser-focused on that one target. A landmark moment in cyber warfare.
Showing the leap from digital intrusion to physical consequences.
Definitely. Then, a couple of years later, 2012, we saw Flame, another incredibly complex piece of malware believed to be for cyber espionage.
Espionage?
Yeah, primarily targeting organizations in the Middle East. Flame was like a Swiss Army knife for spying. It could record audio through the microphone, take screenshots, log keystrokes, scan network traffic, and bundle it all up to send back to its controllers. Its sheer size and complexity were astounding at the time.
Sponsored stuff, presumably?
Widely believed to be, yes. And then you had rootkits driving massive criminal enterprises,
Mm.
like the zero-access rootkit around 2011.
What did that do?
It built a huge botnet, maybe 9 million infected computers at its peak. It used rootkit techniques to make itself incredibly hard to remove, constantly updating itself. The main goal seemed to be click fraud and Bitcoin mining. Big money involved.
9 million machines. That's enormous.
It was huge. Similar story with the Rostock rootkit a bit earlier, maybe 2006 onwards. Another massive botnet, maybe 1.5 to 2.5 million machines, primarily used for sending colossal amounts of spam email. Again, using rootkit techniques for stealth and persistence.
Just churning out spam from infected PCs.
Exactly. And one more worth mentioning, maybe, MeBroot from around 2007. It was notable because it specifically targeted the master boot record, making it a bootkit, and spread through drive-by downloads. Very stealthy right from the point of infection.
So these examples really drive home the point. They can be tools for DRM, gone wrong, cyber warfare, espionage, massive botnets for crime, a huge range of impacts.
A huge range, all enabled by that core capability, deep access combined with extreme stealth.
So let's bring it back home. What does all this mean for you listening right now? It's clear rootkits pose this unique challenge because they hide so effectively, so deep within the system.
It's true, they are definitely formidable opponents. They're designed from the ground up to be invisible. But, and this is the crucial takeaway, I think, understanding how they work, knowing the different types, knowing how they get in. That's your first and maybe best line of defense.
Knowledge is power.
It really is in this case, because it informs how you protect yourself. Using those layered strategies we talked about, keeping everything updated, OS, firmware, apps, using specialized tools, maybe doing occasional offline scans, enabling secure boot, and just being aware, being cautious online, all those things together significantly reduce your risk.
So not invincible, but demanding respect and vigilance.
Exactly. You can defend against them, but you need to be proactive and informed.
Which brings us to our final thought for you to ponder. In a world where these threats can hide deeper than ever before, how does our ever-increasing reliance on digital systems, phones, computers, cars, everything, demand a fundamentally new level of vigilance from all of us? A new way of critically thinking about what's really running on our devices, even, or especially, when everything looks perfectly normal on the surface.